My brother mocked me for learning how to sew, so I made him think he was shrinking. My older brother Charlie is my roommate because we generally get along, but we do like to give each other a hard time. He's a nice guy with a good job, but definitely has a sizable dumb jock streak. I make fun of him for being boring and only caring about macros and shit. Meanwhile, he teases me for obsessing over random poop nobody cares about and making it my entire personality for a while, which is valid. Recently, I got really into historical clothing, like the history of suit construction and the development and popularity of different fabrics. After a couple weeks reading everything I could find on the subject, I couldn't scratch the itch, and I signed up for some sewing classes at a nearby fabric store. I ended up really liking them, and it turned out I was pretty damn good at it, so I ordered a sewing machine. Charlie came home while I was setting it up and started laughing at me for picking such a girly hobby and making a lot of dumb jokes asking me if I prefer pads or tampons and poop like that. I didn't really care. I was having a great time sewing things, but my brother just would not let it go. Every time he'd see me using the machine, he had something to say about how he didn't know he had a sister and dad would be rolling over in his grave or whatever. It started to get really annoying, and I was running out of comebacks that he would probably enjoy learning how to sew, but unfortunately, you have to know how to count first, and things of that nature. So I decided it was time to escalate things a little bit. Charlie went away for a few days for a business trip, and I got to work. I let out the hems on all his shirts and pants. Great practice for me and my seam ripper, and it made all his clothes just slightly bigger, even though they didn't look any different if you didn't know what you were looking for. I also let out the waist in his pants, so they'd all be a little big on him. When Charlie came back from his business trip, I told him he looked different, and asked if he'd been slacking on his workouts. He's really into his protein shakes and weightlifting and the like, so slimming down is his worst nightmare. He scoffed and ignored me, but the next morning after he got dressed, I saw him kind of pulling at his pants and frowning a bit, and he told me he was going out to buy some more protein powder. Over the next few days, I kept hinting that he looked different, but I couldn't figure out how. He absolutely noticed something was off. Before he went to work, he'd try on like 5 different shirts and leave them on a heap on the ground. Finally, he came to my room one evening and said, "Okay, I know shirts can shrink in the wash. Can they grow?" I laughed and asked him what the hell he was talking about. He said, "Dude, can I tell you something? I think I'm shrinking." I told him he was nuts, but he insisted something was wrong and he was an inch shorter than he used to be. I stood up and pretended to measure myself against him, acting like I thought he was being totally ridiculous, and then I went, "Oh, yeah, you used to come up to like here on me," which was a complete lie, obviously. He was the exact same size. His clothes were just longer, but he freaked out and said he needed to go to the doctor because he had a mysterious shrinking syndrome, and what if it kept going and he ended up short. I swear I thought I was going to break and tell him the truth when he said, "Dude, what if I start losing inches from my you-know-way?" But I somehow didn't confess. He's going away again next weekend, and I'm going to use my fancy new machine to hem all his clothes back to where they were, so he'll probably never know what his mysterious shrinking syndrome was, but at least it was only temporary.